I actually focused on learning to do nothing because I had done something for so many years, so much, that I thought this is an opportunity to be allowing and to not have to put everything together, not have to make things happen, and not be in control. And it took a good long time.
The reason that we are having such a good time with you is because we want to put forth the idea that deliberately doing nothing is doing something. And that it is the smartest thing that you could ever do, because in deliberately doing nothing, you are deliberately reaching for the state of allowing, which allows everything that you've ever wanted to come into place. When you realize that in everything that you've been living, you've been asking. And so Source, who adores you and hears you and understands you and is answering you, is responding in the steady, consistent way that it is, that when you decide finally, and usually you have to beat yourself up pretty good before you come to that place, but when you finally decide that you are going to afford yourself a block of time where you do not push yourself to do something that you do not want to do, or where you do not force yourself to do something when you would rather not do it, but instead you choose what feels best to you, then all kinds of things come into place. And we were also teasing with you a little bit because we know that when you make the decision to do nothing and you get into that place of allowing, that then all kinds of inspiration to do things comes forth, because it isn't about doing nothing, it's about feeling better about what you are doing.
And I thought, well, you could just decide you're not going to work and just keep sitting on the beach. And I didn't have the courage or the ability to do that. And so I went back to work. I had a terrible job and I had a mediocre job, and now I find myself in an excellent job that I'm grateful to have. But I really liked the independence. And so I had to come back and sit on this hot stove. And so I thought, okay, I have all these tools, I know how to do it. I spent weeks getting to where I would, feel good. But I'm back in a similar, not the same hole, but I'm back at work doing somebody else's work.
There is more joyful experience in the deliberate doing of something than in the indeliberate doing of something. And there's actually more joy in the deliberate doing of something than in the deliberate not doing of something. And what we mean by that is, when you deliberately focus and energy flows through you and you feel in control of what you're doing, that is like the optimum experience, whether you are physically focused or not. You've sort of set yourself up for not liking working, and you're sort of continuing the story, and we were trying to sort of set you off from that a little bit as you speak, and a lot of people do, that work is not a good thing and that leisure time is. And what we like to say is that there are things that you can focus upon that feel good and things that you focus upon that don't feel good, and the environment in which you are doing it is sort of a non-issue. In other words, there are people in what anyone would call a work environment that are on fire with the joy of their work because they're focused with no resistance. But there's something about deciding that you're in bondage or deciding that you're not free and then applying yourself that keeps it from ever being a very good feeling experience, because you already have a vibrational drum that you're beating that says, I'm really not free and I'm having to do something I don't want to do. You can be joyful in anything that you are doing, but you have to stop saying, I don't have choices, when in fact you do. You said to us, I had the choice of working or not working. Now, what you really meant was, well, I really didn't have the choice, because if I don't go to work, I don't have any money. And if I don't have any money, then there are all kinds of other choices that I've made that can't be satisfied.
Right.
But really, there are a lot of people that are on the beach today that don't have any money. In other words, that is an option. And there are a lot of people on the beach today who have plenty of money. In other words, you just have to decide what you most want to do. But what you more than anything have to do is stop deciding more what you don't want. In other words, you have to start saying what you do want. Now, what we would like to say to all of you about this is that that really is the way your life is supposed to be. It's what you had in mind when you came forth into these bodies. You knew that this was an environment that had the potential to surprise and delight you in endless ways. You never said, I'll go forth and pay a price. And once I've paid a big enough price, I will allow myself a little bit of pleasure in return for the hardship. Because from your non-physical perspective, you understand that that is not the way it works. In other words, we would like all of you to assume the identity of one who is on an endless cruise, or one who is on an endless beach, or one who is on an endless path of beaches and cruises and interesting things and interesting people and interesting subjects and wonderful, adventurous, delicious, wonderful things to do. In other words, we would like you to adopt that as your identity. And it takes some living of the other to spike that desire enough that you begin to do that, but there is no reason for you to have less than one joyful moment after one joyful moment after one joyful moment. You do not have to dip back in to the unwanted. So what is in the vibrational makeup of you or of anyone that makes you think that? In other words, where do you pick up this I have to pay a price sort of thing? I have to work for many years before I get to retire, and then we see those in retirement in absolute boredom or a limp sort of feeling because they are accustomed to having energy drawn through them. So we can understand how lying on the beach or saying I have nothing to do would feel like a marked improvement over having to do something you don't want to do, especially for someone who does not seem to be appreciating the efforts that you are making. But we have to say to you, that if you can get focused in an attitude of non-resistance, that almost anything that you might choose to do would in the long run feel better than choosing nothing because you are a focusing mechanism. It's the hardest thing that physical friends hear from us. The most difficult thing that they hear from us is that you really do want to be an active participator in this life experience. You really do want to have reason to focus and reason to decide. You really do want hands-on creative control of your life experience. And we think that the story that you told us is not about wanting to do nothing. We think the story that you told us is about wanting less resistance in your life.
Yes,
we think that the story that you told us is about having more individual say in where you get to turn your attention.
Exactly.
We don't think it's about doing or not doing. We think it's about the feeling of bondage, or what makes that seem better to you than what you have.
I guess I feel I don't own it, and it's not something that I created and that I want for myself. I feel it's something that I just have to do, and I absolutely can make the best of it, and I can enjoy it. But if I really had a choice, I would not be going there every day.
If you were laying on the beach and it suddenly became 37 degrees, would you stay there anyway?
Well, no.
So you would make the best of the situation and you would go somewhere else?
Yeah.
So you don't have control over the weather, and yet you feel freer in the beach environment than you do in the work environment. We're just going to torture you just a little bit here because we want to show you that you and almost everybody else you know have stubbornly concluded that there is so much more that you don't like.